couple of things in here. So we downloaded everything. We are using ctemp. Okay, now as far as in the actual installation, we showed you that we needed to click on the .exe file. Apologize for the typo, but basically we are going to run the setup. Now there are some important considerations, and we will highlight some other ones as we go along, but you know, depending on what you're trying to do, you should only install what's needed. So let's say if you're not going to be using you know, reporting services or analysis, there is really no need to install that on your machine. You should only go for what's necessary, I guess, in your case. Now one thing that you should be aware of as far as best practices, that you should be running SQL services under a domain account. What I mean by SQL services are things like database engine, integration service, agent service, and some of the other ones. It's always a good security practice to run this as a domain account, and we will cover this as we go through the installation, but I wanted to mention that. Next point is the data files, which, if you're not aware, SQL Server has two files. It's got a .mdf file, which is the actual data file, and then it's also got a .ldf file, which is a log file. Ideally, these should be present or placed in separate drives per database, and the reason for that is performance. Log file is always written to, which basically keeps transactions of your database activity. So you know, that drive is going to be very high in write activity, as opposed to a data file, which is going to be read and write. Okay, so I did want to mention that. This last part has to do with uninstallation. So let me switch back to my installation center, if you will. Now in here you'll see that there are a few options that you can choose from. I'm interested in installing new SQL Server standalone option, so I'm going to select the first one. Now do realize that I do have a default instance running on this. In fact, while this is running, I can show you. If I go to Start, All Programs, Microsoft SQL 2012, Management Studio. I've got a few things going on over here, and I'll come back to this screen in a minute. But notice that I do have SQL Server 2012 up and running. In fact, the Management Studio is loading up, and I'm going to show you that I have a default instance already installed on this machine, and now what I'm going to do is install a named instance as part of this installation demo. Okay, so when this thing pulls up, if you put in a period, you can also put in the machine name, which is laptop PC, and if I connect, this will bring up my default instance of SQL Server 2012. Okay, if you haven't seen this, you'll notice that the Management Studio does look a little bit different. They've added some colors and you know, streamlined it a bit, but now I am within SQL Server 2012. In fact, I have some databases running, and we have been you know, running some demos on that, so I did want to highlight that for you. Now back to our setup. One of the first things it's going to do is it's going to ask for setting up support files. Okay, and if you get a warning or a failed option, which we did not, you will have to address this. If I look in my details, I have all the necessary information. The first time I did run this, I think I was missing this last one, which is the .NET 2.0, and I think I was missing a service pack, so it did ask me for this and some of the other things, but in my case I am okay with all of these, so I will just simply click OK. And what it's doing, it's setting up your server, essentially sort of like doing a pre-setup, so that you are able to move on to the next step. Okay, now for any of these steps, if they start taking a long time, I will go ahead and pause the video, but we'll kind of play it by ear. So now it's saying it was looking for product updates. Right now there are no updates for SQL Server found online, so we will just go to next. Okay. This step, it says, is install setup files. If an update is found, will be included. So it is essentially what it's doing right now is finding what option of SQL Server are already installed. If you were doing a fresh install, you will obviously be going along with all of the files. In our case, it will probably find specific files that are unique to a named instance. So it finished doing its thing. Now we are on to the setup support rules. Okay, these identify any of the problems that might occur when you actually do the installation. It says failures must be corrected before setup can continue. The only warning I have is that I do not have a Windows firewall setting, which is okay. If you were running this in a network, you would definitely want to enable that, but I am running SQL in an isolated environment, so I will say next. Okay, so here is basically the main screen for SQL Server installation. There are a few steps, as you can see in the left pane. I will be walking you through these as they come up. Now the first thing it needs to ask you is basically, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to perform a new installation, or are you trying to add features to an existing installation, which in our case would be this one. So today I'm actually going to be performing a new installation, so I will select that. Okay, and here are the installed instances already. Like I mentioned, it found a default instance, so I will click next. Okay, if you had a product key, you would select that. We are doing a eval edition. I could install Express if I wanted to. Okay, here is a basically standard license agreement. I will accept that, and you can uncheck this next one if you wanted to. Click next, and I will be selecting SQL Server feature installation, which is the main setup option. Now here is where I was mentioning that depending on what you're trying to do, you can check and uncheck some things. You will see that some of them are already checked by default, as in these are the shared features that utilize the original installation. For now, I'm going to pick the database engine. I don't really need replication, so I will skip that, and then I will pick let's see, reporting services, and I think that is all I need. So basically I'm picking, because you'll notice these other options are disabled as they're the shared feature, so I just picked the database engine and the reporting services. I will go ahead and select next. Now the next step, it is asking me, actually just mentioning that Microsoft.NET Framework 3.5 Service Pack 1 is required, which I already have on this machine. If you don't have that, you will have to take that and take care of it, because remember, this is one of the prerequisites that we mentioned in the hardware and software requirements. I will click next.